situation, so we'll continue. But Zappy, I wanted to ask you to start things off. First of all, psychedelic concierge. So touch a little bit on what that moniker actually means, and then also dive into your with Lamar during some very intimate moments on this journey. What's most surprising to you about ketamine as you see it start to affect someone positively?
Yeah, so I salute Lamar for being so open to let me film this, but as a psychedelic concierge, I think this is a job that a lot of people here should consider. It's going to be a big job coming up for a lot of people. But basically, like when you go to a hotel and you ask the concierge where to go to dinner, and they ask you a couple questions like, what kind of food do you like? You want wine, music, and then they make a determination. As a psychedelic concierge, I asked Lamar when I first met him, what was your intent for doing this, and what kind of trauma do you have in your past? And I thought, he was just like some spoiled celebrity or something like that. But it turned out he'd lost his mother to cancer at 12 years old, at 12 years of age, and his son had passed away at 6 months old. He never processed any of this stuff. So you get to see in the film, Lamar first started with the ketamine. I basically came up with a formula for him, which was ketamine plus plant medicine plus daily practice like meditation or breathing equals a conscious transformation. And so we went through those steps, and ketamine, to come back to that, it's so approachable, FDA approved. Do it in a doctor's office, do it at home, it's very acceptable. And so Lamar, if I had said to him, hey, let's go down to Mexico and take some psychedelics, he would have been like, no way. But the fact that he got to engage with ketamine, have one of those types of experience where he went inside himself, and when you see the film, you can see when he wound up doing ibogaine down in Mexico, he got to hear his mother's voice for the first time in decades. He saw his son, who passed away at 6 months old, grow to be 8 or 9 years old, then a teenager. And he's like, just seeing that alone changed my whole life and how I process this. So.
Roger, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the stage with us.
Amazing to be here.
Considered really a leading expert researcher in this space. You're not a fortune teller, and I know sometimes we can only look as far forward as we've been able to look back. But what are you predicting then for the future of ketamine as a healing modality, especially as it pertains to some of the things that Zappy's talking about in terms of its transformational potential?
Well, that's a great way to finish it, on the phrase transformation potential. I've been in this business for 25 years. Over 100,000 people have come through my center since I originated in depression. And, I've had affiliations and credentials, but really just superficial. I'm really an advocate for patients and families. And the call to action is we got to do better. And we've done a lot of good for a lot of people for a long time. Most people haven't done well enough. And so about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, through my research around the world, etc., we started to use ketamine. And to Zappy's point, this has been for Lamar, it's been very helpful. And Lamar, in many ways, represents not just an isolated case. It's been the most important advance we've had in depression therapeutics in 7 decades. And the important part about it is not that it works. It's not that it actually reduces suicidality. But most importantly, it gives people a sense of life, a sense of vitality, a sense of living again. And what we've done for 7 decades in psychiatric therapeutics is we've tried to take away their distress and their misery, but we haven't given their life back. And distress and misery reduction, I think, is a noble objective. But people want that and their life back. And ketamine does just that. So the transformation is going to come down to implementation. And when I started this company with Braxia, with my colleagues, I said, we've got to figure out a way to get scale to this. And we offer this through clinics with professional support and expertise and things like that. And I happen to believe that safety is the number one aspect. Placebo causes side effects in 70% of people. So side effects happen. And we got to safety right. But we have to get the scale to this. And we know here in America, around the world, COVID-19 has amplified the imperative of depression therapeutics. And so we've got to get this democratized. And having this available only in specialized clinics is just not going to address the public health priority. So we've got to find a way to do this safely, with best practices, and do it in a way that's least restrictive. And this could be in a home environment. But again, it wouldn't be in a home environment without the appropriate safeguards in place. And I think that would be, frankly, crazy. And we want to, in fact, do it in a way that respects people, respects their suffering, and when you have safety front and center, what you're saying is I respect you, and I respect your illness, and I respect your treatment. And so we created guidelines for Praxis Scientific. Many of the authors of these international guidelines have set guardrails for this. So what we want to do is we want to actually democratize this to give this scale. And that's going to be in a home type setting or in a more sort of least restrictive setting. So we in fact can make this more available, because what we need to do is not just develop treatments, we have to give these treatments scale. And unfortunately that has always been an afterthought, and I'm always asked by governments around the world, say, hey Roger, how come we've got depression therapeutic, but people are still suffering? This is the greatest burden of humanity, because they can't get access to it. So that's what Zappy and I, my colleagues within the organization, we talked about this. And this is something we want to address head on. So transformation is not going to happen simply by invention. It's going to be implementation. And a plan that's coherent, a plan that's based in reality, and a plan that's always guided by safety, as the Praxis is doing.
I gotta admit, my master plan was slightly foiled because Lamar was going to talk about at-home ketamine treatment, and I was going to ask him to comment on it. I thought about that, but we'll see if we can get him back, because I think it's an important discussion, right? Is the clinical setting necessary, or if there were safety procedures put in place where you could guarantee that, is this something that someone could take into their own hands in the comfort of their home? So I just want to jump over to Michelle super quickly, but perhaps that's something that we're going to be able to touch on again. We'll see. Michelle, you had mentioned to me backstage that something that you felt was lacking in the conversation around ketamine was pain. Can you explain a little bit what you meant by that, and what you're doing specifically to address pain?
Sure. So I am a pain management physician, and I started off interventional, and now I take a much more integrative approach. And really, we have a huge opioid epidemic. We have 50 million people with chronic pain, and the definition of pain is that you have an unpleasant or sensory, emotional experience, and then physical tissue damage. Now, pain doctors are just looking at the physical tissue damage. If you have a headache, if you have leg pain, we're just kind of focused on that specific complaint. But chronic pain patients all have anxiety, depression, past trauma. So if you're trying to treat a chronic pain patient, how did they get to chronic pain? Why does acute pain turn into chronic pain? And we should be talking about this more at this conference. We're focusing so much on mental health, which of course is a comorbidity of pain. But there's this concept of central sensitization where someone has a hyperreactive nervous system, it becomes like the perfect storm. And this is seen with fibromyalgia patients. It's not just with complex regional pain syndrome. And in order to quiet this down, we can use things like ketamine to block the NMDA receptor, but we also need therapy. So the chronic pain patients who are not getting proper therapy are not going to have durable, lasting effects. So the way I treat a chronic pain patient is really to look at the whole person. When they have ketamine, they actually get to take a break from their pain. It's not just a loop thinking, it's actually a break from their body. They leave thinking that they've just shed years of their life because they become the person that they were before, where they had more power, where they felt stronger, they didn't live in that body that had pain. And they're so stuck with the habitual identity that I am my pain. And pain, it does originate in the brain, in our central nervous system. However, we have to treat it from a different lens. And so I really am very big on therapy with ketamine for chronic pain. It's not just for mental health. The infusion clinics are a potential risk for us, like the opioid epidemic. And so it's really important that we're preparing the patient, that we're integrating them, and that the therapist is able to teach them self-regulation and to get their body into a parasympathetic state, because even though there's no imminent threat, they still feel pain. So it's really redefining pain and trying to collaborate with functional neurologists or psychiatrists and pain doctors, mental health practitioners, so that we can all actually look at this person like a whole person, not just where they're actually showing us they have pain.
I want to make a comment about the home treatment,
Yeah,
because I think that's important. Full disclosure, I am Michelle did force her to do ketamine treatment when she started out here. So, no, I think that, like Roger said, access is critical, and the home method, to be guided. I'm involved with a company called KetMD where we do these home sessions where you're guided by a nurse over telemed. And what's cool about it is not only is it democratizing ketamine, making it more affordable, more accessible, but in addition to the session where you're having that connection with the person over telemed, there is really this psychic connection that happens and it's felt. And so the transformations that happen at home in your own set and setting are just as powerful as in the clinic. Lamar started out in the clinic, now he does the at-homes, and he said he feels like it's building back some of that cognitive damage that he did during those strokes. And I would say, as the non-doctor on the panel, but having read Nature magazine and a bunch of things, there is incredible science. Just, my understanding briefly is that you have this area of your brain called the default mode network, and there's this little mechanism in there called your lateral habenula. It's recording all the stress you've ever had in your whole life. When it becomes too much, your brain goes into burst mode, and it shuts off your dopamine production. That's your happiness, your motivation. The first time you do medical ketamine, it takes the brain out of burst mode. You start getting the dopamine back, and we get calls the next day from husbands and wives, and they're like, "Oh my God, he just cleaned the garage." Ketamine is doing that for 5 years. Keep going. But the reality is, every time you do the ketamine, when it metabolizes, you're building neural pathways around these patterns and things. So I think for the Western society, this is critical. And as Roger said, he joined KetMD as an advisor. This is like a golden moment where we can do best practices and have people like Roger, who's written several hundred articles. He's doing a study for the Chinese government. He Praxis trained a couple of weekends ago 25 people doing psilocybin, guiding. It's like we need the medical professionals in groups like this to set the real protocols here.
So Roger, when you hear something like, psychic symmetry essentially happening between two people from a distance, I mean, we know we've made massive adjustments in our ability to connect from a distance. I mean, because of COVID, largely, we've been forced to. But then you're also saying that we absolutely need to bring in repeatable protocols that allow for safety, right? So can you comment on what Zappy just said then about progress in that area and access?
Yeah, absolutely. The key part is access, and we've got to figure out a way that that everyday people can access the treatment. And really, in fact, we want to do it within safe guardrail. That's why we created the world's first guidelines for a psychedelic. Ketamine is the first one, and that provides safety. And that's an important guardrail, obviously. Now, related to that is the aspect of psychotherapy, and I pick up on what you said, and I agree with you that there's no doubt about it that having the ability to make that meaningful connection with a therapist, whether it's in person or virtual, it turns out that the evidence indicates loud and clear that virtual is just as good and just as satisfactory to the end user, the person who's using it. And what's really important about that is COVID-19 has not only increased the utilization of this, but importantly, it's increased the confidence in it. It was a very kind of foreign tool to a lot of people now, quite frankly. But it's no longer that case. And when it comes to what does the evidence say, the evidence is giving us a reason to believe that you may be able to prolong the effects of ketamine if you combine it with some of the psychotherapeutic approaches. Exactly to your point you're talking about, habenula, that's exactly what I hear. People come back and I feel myself again. I feel the full range of my experiences again for the first time in 5, 10, or 20 years. So I hear that all the time. And those types of gains can be really consolidated when we integrate that, for example, with psychotherapy. And again, the scale of psychotherapy is through virtual and telehealth. And that's something we're collectively working on.
Yeah. We've got about 5 minutes left. I'm going to go ahead and give up on Lamar showing up unless he's super late to the party. And it was his birthday on Saturday.
He's
quarantined.
He wanted to come. He said he was going to wear a mask, but we knew it was going to be like a super spreader. their event.
Yeah. Well, something he said in the documentary, which I really liked, was that fear can stop us from trying to be great. Now that's coming from Lamar Odom. You know, fear can stop us from trying to be great. Ketamine can allow people to reconnect with aspects of themselves that have been elusive for years. With these sentiments in mind, as we carefully and yet boldly move into the future of mental health, and you know, this panel, as ketamine goes mainstream, there's almost a delicate nature to what we're doing and how we're doing this. Can you summarize in your closing remarks why you're doing this?
Well, I'm just going to pick up on the concept of fear. For me, the other side of fear is love. And I think that as a physician, you know, we don't measure consciousness, we don't measure love, we can't measure connection, but when you see someone suffering, it's nice to give them a break so that they can connect with themselves or others, or actually have compassion for themselves. The therapeutic alliance involved in ketamine is extremely important. The power that we have when we're in the room with a patient, my therapist, Sherry Kaplan, who's brilliant. I'm very fortunate to have someone that I can work with who helps guide the patients. It's extremely important to make the patient feel safe and also have a follow-up plan. What we're trying to work on right now are protocols, but this is really personalized, and so it's difficult to make protocols. So the thing is I look forward to how we measure consciousness and connection. I think that's extremely important to remember, even though we're physicians and this is all supposed to be evidence-based, but there's that component of, you know, humanity and the human experience that's happening besides the mechanism, the biological mechanism behind the medication. So my point is just to remember, you know, connection and also to prepare the patients properly so that they have a more durable effect.
I also think, you know, that it's really cool because, you know, a lot of amazing technology from pharma is now coming over to the psychedelic space, and I think that's really important because, you know, you are going to be fearful. The first time I tried ketamine, I was afraid. I knew it was going to be something incredible and new, and so you have to condition people for that. But I think, you know, I'm involved with another company called Psychoceutical that's basically allowing drug delivery to happen in different ways, and some of these ways you can alter some of that psychedelic effect in some cases for children or elderly or, you know, people who are scared. And we have to accept that because of the stigma, people are going to be scared. They're going to be afraid, more afraid to stay a drug addict than to do ibogaine, or more afraid of just sitting there being depressed than doing ketamine. So if there's ways that we can leverage technology to make this feel safer for people, and then I just think, you know, doctors and people like these folks that, you know, can tell you scientifically what's happening and make your family feel good about it, I think that's like how you close the loop.
Yeah, I agree completely with that. You know, what I have learned over the years is that meeting so many folks who have been affected by depression is that the deliverable that I think is most impactful is the deliverable of hope, and true hope, to add an extra sort of aspect to it. And this is in fact what inspired us to go a different direction and look at psychedelics broadly. Ketamine certainly is the focus for now and will be our priority because it's already approved in many countries and it's already been shown to be safe and effective, and we've developed protocols for it. And there's many ways our company, Braccia Scientific, is going to look at this and look at safer ways to administer it and other derivatives of it, etc. And also, to my point, to find ways to scale it, which is something we're very excited about. All the while, we look at other treatments, and you know, psilocybin, other types of treatments you've been hearing a lot about here. But we need treatments now, and we need treatments that we need to focus on in the near term because the hope is needed now. And we've seen this amplification of distress right around the world because of COVID. So I would say that for us as an organization, we are following the end user. The end user needs hope, needs safe, effective treatments now, and that's entirely guiding our priority. People often ask me, how do you go over your strategy? Well, I just listen to the people who are affected by depression, and that's what we're doing, and we're going to in fact have that as an offering in the near term. and look at other things, of course, as they are available and data become available to the public and to us as well. So this is clearly the opportunity in the near term, and lots more we can say about it with respect to bringing scale.
Six.
Can I tell one quick, guidance?
3. You're gonna get the music. Roger, Michelle, Abby, thank you so much. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Jordan.
Anything that I'm not hitting on, like you really want to mention about the work that you guys are doing, hopes that you have, milestones you're looking forward to?
Big thing I think we want to emphasize is that, look, this meeting in Miami has just been a wonderful concatenation of animal spirits, of hope, of a lot of pretty cool people, I got to say. But I would also say that we need to also have a careful, thoughtful approach to this. We're talking about serious medical problems. And so we need serious thoughtfulness in taking this forward. So hope, ambition is not enough. And I think the track record, we've been doing this for 25 years, I think that does matter. And I think that's what's given me the confidence that our company is going to be able to really address this imperative, and why I'm frankly very thrilled for what we're doing.
Well, thank you so much.
Oh,
for,
wonderful to be with you.
Chatting. It's really
Yeah.
lovely to
Nice to be with you. Yeah, nice to be with you.
After your panel, I mean, I thought that was really great.
Oh,
the
cool.
way
Thank you.
guys, talked about the different aspects of it.
It was
and
a
I agree that, it should be like, what are we here for ultimately?
Yeah, exactly.
Out there,
It was a shame that Lamar thing didn't work out. That was a shame. That was a shame. Oh well. But hey, listen, enjoy the rest of your time here.
Totally.
And
I'm sure I'll see
I'm sure we'll cross paths. You bet. Okay, you bet. Take care.
I will stay.